to another episode of A Feminine Moment. I am Cherry Lynn, and I'm here with Dixie Andelin Forsyth. Hi, Dixie.
Hi, Cherry. Good morning.
Good morning. Dixie is the author of Fascinating Womanhood for the Timeless Woman, now an international Amazon bestseller. And Dixie is also the daughter of Helen B. Andelin, who wrote the original Fascinating Womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here today to talk about a really fun subject. We're talking about greeting him at the door. So what is So what does that mean?
It doesn't mean necessarily literally at the door. You may not be able to, but if you can, it's really nice. And it's about how to greet him when he comes home. It seems like a simple thing, but there's a lot of our ladies that aren't sure exactly how to do that.
Or they don't even do it.
Or they don't do it. Or how do you do it? If you look back on how do you greet him when he's come home? And for some ladies, he's home first and she's home later. They have they're both working different schedules. How you greet each other when you haven't seen each other all day. If you can greet him, if you're home first, that's great because you can make sure you have food cooking or something that smells good. You can control the atmosphere better. But how do you greet him when you haven't seen each other for a while? For me, I get to mostly greet him when he comes home. So when I hear the back door, I'm not always aware of exactly when he'll come home because he's self-employed. And when I hear him, what I trained myself a long time ago, we've been married 50 years now. I trained myself a long time ago and I didn't do it on purpose. I just always have felt really excited to be married to him. And so when I hear the door, I automatically flash to when we were dating and he was coming to pick me up for a date, and my heart starts pounding. And of course, when I knew he was coming, I was always ready, cologne on, my hair brushed, things like that. And I was so excited to see him. So that's what I do. And some women, if you think about what you do, some women accidentally get into these patterns of taking each other for granted. Things like, did you get the milk that I asked you to get? I expected you a half an hour ago. Why aren't you here yet? Why weren't you here? I was worried about you. How do we greet the men in our lives when we see them?
You bring up a good point. Why is it important to do this? What's the point of all of it?
It sets the stage for the rest of your evening, for the rest of your time together. It begins it. When you're dating and you do that, you think, well, that's just sort of natural. Why does it ever change? Why does it ever kind of dilute? It doesn't have to. But women are the best ones to keep that up because we're more sensitive to negative emotion and to the relationship. If the first thing you do when you hear the door or the garage door, whatever it is, the situation you have, stop what you're doing, if at all possible. Think, here he comes. He's here. I'll tell you guys because we're all friends. I always throw my arms around him and I'll say something like, I really missed you, or you're a sight for sore eyes, or I have a lot of different things I might say. You're home, because I really am excited to see him. And sometimes, because everybody knows life can be tough and you hear about people getting hurt or killed in accidents. And when he comes home, I think he's safe. How would you feel if this was the last day you ever saw him? How would you greet him then? And try to do that.
So when you have a little bit more flexibility because he comes home, he's self-employed. You're usually home because you work a lot from home. So
I am. This is
exactly.
I'm working. Yeah.
For those of us out there that have small children, or lots of kids, or maybe it's just chaotic at the time when he's coming home. I think there's a lot of different scenarios we could discuss.
Yes.
First, the moms. I think that's what we hear so much about is the moms will say, well, I don't really do much of a greeting when he comes home because I'm usually cooking and I'm helping my kids with homework. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Right. And it's usually just a kind of a hello. And I think the kids, in answer to what you said earlier, why does it go away from when we were dating? I think a lot of women fall into those kind of traps of, kids, that's what happened. I had kids and the kids kind of came first.
Well, I had 7 children. So I even though I'm not in that at the moment. I had many years of that. And so I understand. But when you make him number one for you, when he is always number one. And what that means is, it doesn't mean if you've got a nursing baby, you don't nurse the baby or anything like that. It means that he is number one priority for you in your heart. This is something, like I said in the beginning, we've been married a long time. I have always done this. When he comes home, I'm always excited to see him. If you knew, and again, go back to, if you knew this was the last day you would see, that he would be gone, even if you had children, even if you had homework, you would stop for a moment and, I'm so happy to see you. Welcome home. I mean, it doesn't take any time. It's more of a habit and a priority that we can change. And it doesn't mean that, I don't know, let's say one of your kids falls down, you're bandaging them. You don't have to leave. You can say, I'm so happy to see you. You can still greet him that way. It's rather than the sort of the cursory, oh, hi, and like he doesn't matter.
You've got kids, involving your kids in greeting them, because I know that works well for me. Because I kind of struggled with this for a while. I found that it works really well to just everyone greet him. If you feel like you're juggling a lot, and it's almost as simple as saying, he's here, announcing it and saying, Daddy's home. And everyone kind of gets into this habit of running to him. And I know my husband particularly loves that. I know some men might be overwhelmed by it and maybe want a little bit of space, but my husband absolutely loves it. Sometimes he even says that. Sometimes he even says it's the favorite part. It's his favorite part of his days when he comes home and everyone kind of tackles him a little bit.
And everybody, think of the big picture here. You want a happy family. You want a solid marriage. You want a lifelong love affair with this man. What are you going to do your part to achieve it? It's good for your children to see you and him have a loving relationship. It's good for them. So it's not like, oh my gosh, my kids are, if your kids, think of your kids so important, which we all do, you also realize that your children need to see you loving your husband and that your relationship is solid. They need to see it on a regular, everyday basis. And it doesn't mean they see you making out or things like that all the time, but they need to see that relationship between you. It makes kids feel safe and it helps in the stability of your home. So taking a few moments to greet your husband is simple. It's kind of a matter of just habit and priority. And you can easily do that when you think about how important he is.
Yeah.
And it's not hard, and you can get to the point where you won't even consider not. Like, we can also talk about when he leaves. What do you do? If you're around, if he doesn't leave at 3 a.m. and when you're still asleep, but even if he does all the time, I would want to get up and say goodbye because it's that important to me. Because I think if this was the last day I ever saw him, I wouldn't want to have not said goodbye and that I loved him every single day. So when he says, it's like this morning, he left early. I get up. I see if there's anything I can do for him. I always hug and kiss him goodbye, and I watch him from the door, say goodbye from the door and watch him leave. That's me. I don't have if I was in the middle of nursing a baby, I might do it from the bedroom and say goodbye. It's, have a great day. What it's doing is making sure that these little things, you don't take him for granted, because you really don't know. You really don't know what he's going to experience that day. You don't know what you're going to go through that day. And I'm not talking about you have to have a fatalistic, I might die today kind of thing every day. But it helps me to not take him for granted, to realize I feel really lucky to have this man. Experienced several years ago for me, there's some friends of ours, and they had 4 little kids, and he was killed in a plane crash along with his father. And I remember hearing her say, later she heard women complaining about their husbands leaving their clothes around or a mess, and she said, I would give anything to see his shoes thrown around. And it just struck me so hard. I thought, none of us have to ever take our spouses for granted, our men in our lives. We don't have to take anyone for granted.
So what about the couples that both work or both work from home? Or maybe the man's home. Like, I know a couple where the man works from home and the woman works outside the home and they have kids. So what about that dynamic?
Yeah, it's a matter of how you greet each other when you've been apart for so long. And if both of us worked from home, then there's that tendency to take each other for granted because you see a lot of each other. That can also happen, but you can also teach yourself and tell yourself to not take them for granted. And there's a lot of little tricks and stuff. And tricks is kind of a weird word because we don't really mean it's fake. But you can, it's by telling yourself and refocusing on what you love about that person and why you appreciate them and are grateful for them. And you can always be grateful for the other person, even if they're kind of grumpy sometimes, and even if sometimes they say things that are not the most pleasant. You can still, at the same time, be grateful for who they are and what they mean to you.
No, I think that's really good. I think too, I notice a lot of couples these days text each other a lot.
Yes.
Before they come home. And
Yes.
I know my husband does that with me. And I've found that is a really fun way, really greeting each other. But like my husband will say, I'm on my way. And I think, I like to respond sometimes with a little animated like thing or like a heart or something.
Yeah.
And I think helps too for those moms or those people that might be a little busy. Texting each other little sweet things, I think, can help.
Well, there's another thing that you can do. Some ladies put a little note in his lunch if he takes his lunch.
Yeah.
Some ladies put, I've done this occasionally, put a little note on his pillow for later, and he just finds it, even though we're in the same house. Just say, wanted to say, oh, and you could do an admiration thing. I just wanted to say how much I love how you do this. And you can not always say it. You can write a little note. And there's so many things we can do. And you know what, women, ladies, we're good at this. This is one of our strengths is the little things. We're good at the little things. So we just sometimes need to just focus our attention on doing those little things. And there's big things too, but these are the fun little things we can do that are easy.
Yes, I love it. And this is a great way to kind of keep your romance alive. I love it.
And you can do it every single day. The way you talk to him, the way you greet him, the way you appreciate him, you can do that.
Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful advice and talking to us about greetings. And everyone out there, don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We all attached all of the places you can find us down below. Love to answer any of your questions down below. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.